Hey everybody, welcome to Making Over Monday. My name is Jessica. The title of today's discussion for Making Over Monday is Setting Our Expectations. And I would like to just start this off as our very first episode of Making Over Monday with setting your expectations, because it is such an important and vital aspect of our day-to-day lives. How are we waking up? How are we going to set our intentions for the day? Are we going to expect good news? Are we going to expect bad news? It's basically all set into our imaginations. I was reading the other day about your imaginations, and I was just thinking about the fact that just as easily as it is to expect good things to happen, it is easy to imagine bad things to happen, and it is all in the function of our imagination. We imagine what we are going to receive, right? We imagine the way that our days are going to go. I just never thought of it necessarily as imagination, because I think that as children, we end up getting chastised if we allow our imaginations to run away with us. I think it becomes something almost negative. But then when you think about it as an adult, the word imagination ends up basically just being changed into expectation. And as an adult, it's perfectly acceptable to say, hey, what are your expectations? But I think in the long of it, all we've done is change the word imagination into expectation. So I would hope today that I would be here to encourage you to imagine again, that there is no difference between imagining and expecting, and that if you were a kid and you were constantly being told that your imagination was wild or ran away with you, or that you needed to get back to reality, understand that was coming from an adult who had perhaps lost sight of the power of expectation, or maybe didn't understand that expectations are no different than imaginations. So in the setting of our expectations today, the scripture that I would like to talk about this morning is Philippians 4:6. And my good friend Natalie, hey Natalie, shout out to you. My good friend Natalie reminded me this morning of Philippians 4:6. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving let your requests be made known unto God. Here we have Paul writing to the Philippian church about expectations and about how we should be more or less striving to live, which is anxious for nothing. Stress-free, worry-free, and also having set our expectations that with Thanksgiving, everything is covered. Everything is under control. Whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is that you are facing this week, whatever it is that you're facing this month, even this year, when you have set your mind to be thankful, and when you have let it go and given it up to God, there really is no reason for anxiety, right? There really is no reason to be stressed out or allowing that thing to overtake you, because what you're actually doing and what it is you're setting your imagination down the spiral path. You are letting your imagination run wild. It's just running wild in more of a negative connotation. And that's not what we're after today. What we're after today is setting our imaginations, allowing ourselves to dream again, deciding today that we're not just going to have another typical Monday, but we're going to have an amazing week. We're going to have an amazing Monday. This coffee is hitting the spot. As a mom myself, it is very easy to set my expectations on disappointment. I think that it's easy for us to try to build in a buffer of disappointment, that we would somehow, if we put in disappointment into our expectation, that it won't hurt so bad when things don't happen the way that we want them to. And while that is pragmatic, and while it can somehow ease the blow sometimes when we do not get what we expect, it can often become a governor on our ability to believe for God to do great things and do amazing things. Wisdom would say, don't walk in front of a car. But negative expectations would say that I'm never going to cross the street. So as we set our intentions and as we begin to set our expectations on the way that we would like things to end up and the way that we would like things to go, I found it has always been easier to have positive expectations, to have the hope that things are going to work out, and that when we do put our feet in front of us and attempt to cross the street, that given God's guidance, He will give us the green light for when we should go and when we should stay. That if we do obey that and if we abide by that, then we're going to cross the street safely. We're going to get from one side to the other side safely. Maybe there's something that seems that it has been overwhelming, and some task that you perhaps have felt like you've got the green light to go, but you haven't actually started taking that first step. We have a habit of sitting down before we get started in a project and bubble mapping, which means we just take whatever that project is and we put it in the center of the paper. And then as it's in the center of the paper, like let's say it's organize the closet or cook dinner, we allow our minds and our imaginations to creatively express off of that bubble all of the different things. So it's like a word cloud. It's like when you spiral out from there, make dinner, and you just start putting down onto the paper everything that will be required in order to make dinner. Clean kitchen, dishes, pots, pans, ingredients, a recipe, an idea. And so we just basically fill the paper with everything that we're going to need in order to make dinner. And I'm using this as a very rudimentary example. You can put anything down. You can put buy a house. But you just want to make sure to empty your brain of all of the millions of things that you're thinking about that are going to impact this project. Then once you are looking at it and once you're sitting down to it and you have this picture on the page of everything that's going to be required in order to accomplish your project objective, look at it and prayerfully consider, what is your next step? Like, what is the next action? If you really want to make chicken cacciatore, but you don't have any chicken, you're going to need to go to the store. And so writing down going to the store as your next objective in accomplishing this task is your first mission. Your first mission, should you choose to accept it, is to go to the grocery store and get all of the ingredients you need in order to make this dish that you're hoping and planning to eat. And so sitting down and taking 5-10 minutes to bubble map, to write it out, to plan it, to look at it, to be able to consciously see the scope of the project that's in front of you. And then in bite-sized pieces, just one step at a time, getting closer to that objective to become completed is the best and easiest way to continue to gain momentum and to get set into those expectations that you're going to succeed at this project. Now, it's very similar to following a recipe. As long as you put it in the oven at 350 degrees because you've followed your recipe, you've read your instructions, then if you've put it in the oven for 350 degrees and you've set the timer for 45 minutes and you don't forget to take it out of the oven, you will have a completely cooked dish. You will have a completely baked project. You will have a completely finished and completed and assembled project. So often I've heard John Maxwell once say, we overestimate the prize and we underestimate what it takes in order to get there. The prize is not the completed dish. The prize is actually the journey and the processes and the ability to navigate all of the blockers along the way on your way to accomplishing this end product, this end project. Today, it is Monday, August 28th. We're looking at just a few more weeks until the end of the year, and we are going to continue to press in towards what is looking to be a great finish for this year. As we set our expectations and as we move forward, I know the kids are all going back to school right now. I know that we are setting our intentions. We're encouraging our children to set their intentions and their expectations that this 2023-2024 year is going to be the best year that they've ever had in school. I would be so interested to hear from you, those that have been watching and those that are listening via the audio podcast, what your expectations are for the kids for this year. Are you a homeschooler who is at home and is putting your kids into the homeschool program, doing something online? Are you unschoolers like us, where you allow their interests and their passions to lead you into the direction of their education? Are you a traditional schooler who has set them forward on their career path and their education path by enrolling them into the public school system and getting the benefit of the education from so many awesome teachers that are out there and dedicating their lives to the education of the next generation? I want to hear from you. I want to know what you're doing and what your plans are. And then perhaps together we can work on, over the next few weeks, on setting a plan together on how we can get through this next school year and be able to more effectively be able to be encouraged and encourage one another in this next school year. I happen to be an unschooler, and I know I get a lot of questions about unschooling. And as a matter of fact, I just most recently got I just got a question on Instagram about what is unschooling. What does unschooling mean? Well, in the simplest terms, what we do as unschoolers is we watch our kids and we study them and we find out what is the thing that is the most interesting to them and their particular character and their particular, bend. Do they like motorcycles? Do they like film? Do they like watching movies even? What is it that is the most interesting aspect of the things that seem to fit their skills the most? And so as we watch them and as we encourage them in what they're doing, we try our very best to get them educated tools, get them the tools in order to support their dreams, in order to support their passions, and we allow their natural inclinations to drive their education. There's so much benefit to education. I find it interesting when people take a judgment of those of us who are homeschoolers, or even those, I find it from the homeschooling community, that attempt to judge traditional educators and the traditionally educated, when at the bottom line of all of it is hoping and dreaming and wishing that our children would have a love for ongoing education, that they would come out of whatever form of schooling that they have received and never want to stop learning. That is the end goal. The end goal for us is to equip our children in the desire, encourage and foster the desire for our children to never stop learning and to continue on their education process as they come out of college and as they go forward in whatever it is that they are doing and whatever it is that they are expecting to do with the rest of their life. So that's in a nutshell what we do as unschoolers. We watch them, we encourage them, we go on a lot of vacations with them, we play a lot of games, we encourage an environment of a high positive self-image, and that they can do anything and go anywhere in their life, and be able to early as possible, set those expectations that they're going to have a victorious life and that they're going to continue each day forward with their education. As unschooled children, they have come across some challenges being unschooled. They have definitely found themselves questioning their upbringing, and yet I have to think that that's totally normal. So I want to encourage those of you who are watching, that is totally normal. I remember going through public school and going through the traditional form of education and asking myself and asking my parents, like, is this the best way that I could have been educated? So I think every child, we are just born with a million questions. Right? We're just born with a billion questions. And so as we continue to live longer, I think that those questions, maybe some of those billions of questions end up becoming millions of questions, and then thousands, and then 10,000s, because asking questions is good. But I think as we get older, we maybe get tired of asking so many questions, and we begin to desire to just want to listen. And that is a big part of maturity, is having the desire to want to listen. I think that children often get forced to have to listen, but we all know that while they're looking like they're listening, they're somewhere else. And so a big sign of maturity is as we become eager to listen. And I'm hoping that as we continue to grow these Monday morning chats, that you will feel as if you are encouraged to chat with me. I am excited to listen to what it is that you have to say, to listen to your questions that you may have to say. I want to hear your point of view on setting expectations. I want to know from you, is it difficult for you to set your expectations? What do you feel is blocking you from setting your expectations that you're going to eat healthy today, or that you're going to be able to, go and do that thing that you've been wanting to do? Are you feeling like you're constantly setting your expectations for wanting to do something, but then, all hell breaks loose and you're not able to do it after all? What do you feel is causing that? Are you feeling like it's the universe that's against you? Are you feeling like it's just a constant battle? It's our job to talk these through and to walk these through together. And so I just love to be able to hear from you, and I love to be able to communicate with you about these types of things. And that is why I am here. And that is why we are going to work together on this channel to make Mondays great again. This is not set up. This live has not been set up just so that I can do all the talking and hear myself talk. As we continue to grow this channel, and as you tell your friends, and as you sit down with a cup of coffee with me, let's work together to have a dialogue, to have a conversation together. Being anxious for nothing is a beautiful and wonderful place to live. It is a beautiful and wonderful place to be. When we are anxious for nothing, we are trusting God for everything. And that is someplace that in itself is a virtuous way to set our expectations. If anything, if you were going to set your expectation on anything, today, setting your expectation to not worry and just saying to yourself, I'm not going to worry today. I'm not going to be anxious today. There are so many things I can think of, so many people right now that are in my circle of influence, that are in my circle of friends that are struggling. And I want to take on their stress and their situation and fret with them, because it's almost as if we feel an underlining belief that if we fret together, somehow we'll either come up with a solution, or somehow we'll ease the pain, or somehow things will get better for the person who's actually going through the struggle. But what that is an indication of is an indication of how strong that God has put into our hearts to desire community, and just what an impact having a close group of friends or a community or a family makes in our daily lives. So getting plugged in and finding a community of people that you can go be around and that can be an encouraging and edifying community is one of the main ways that you will be able to live the anxious-free, anxiety-free life that you're hoping to be able to walk in and to live in. Finding positive people in a negative environment can be difficult, but we're out there. They are out there. I'm encouraging you in that. It's a very special time to be able to sit and have a cup of coffee, isn't it? I love whether you're having tea, whether you're having coffee, whether you're even having a glass of water, the practice of sitting and taking some deep breaths and having that time together to be able to set our expectations for the day is so relaxing. It's such a wonderful moment in time. My husband and I, we have a podcast that releases every Tuesday and Friday for video. And in that podcast, we like to sit and we like to talk about things related to business and economics and the family dynamic from both a husband and wife viewpoint. I decided that when it was time to make over Mondays and for me to be, this is my favorite thing. My favorite thing is building up people and being able to hopefully encourage you that you can do it, that you can make an impact in your own life. Isn't it in The Holiday? Every Christmas we watch The Holiday. It's one of our favorite movies to watch during Christmas time. And in The Holiday, when the old man is talking to Kate Winslet, and he says he's talking about being the main actress in your own story. And so this is the desire, is to become the main lead actor, the main lead actress in your own story. And part of being in the lead role of your own story is making sure to take time for yourself, making time to be intentional, making time to set your thoughts on what it is that you're feeling that God is telling you to do. The other day, I was having a conversation about independence versus dependence. When we're born independent from God. We're born as sinners. We really are blank slates. It's almost like if you could productize humanity, that's a baby, right? This is the product of a mother and a father, or a sperm and an egg, and they've come together and now they've made a human product. And unfortunately, that's where most scientists or atheists leave it. They want to leave it as we were created as a product. We are basically just human machines, and that is it. And that is all that there is to live for. And when you die and you're done. You're you've expired and your product is no longer valid. Those of us who are of the faith understand and recognize that we have been born independent from God, and we have been born into sin, and it is through the grace of God and through his calling that we are led to come to know Christ and to come to know the things of God. And so, as independent beings who have been created in the image of God, who have been created by God, have to choose to become children of God, and that choice is through Jesus Christ. So, needless to say, having that understanding that we are grown independent, that we are born independent, the older that we get, the more it takes to learn dependency. It's a very huge struggle to become dependent and to admit that you are dependent on anything, let alone dependent on God. It can be. But it is the lifelong goal of every believer that by the end of their life, they have come to the reality that they can do nothing without him. That we are not just dependent, we are completely dependent upon God. We are dependent for every breath that we breathe. We are dependent for every thought that we think. We are dependent that we woke up this morning, because we cannot do any of this on our own power. Versus the way of the world, which believes that you are born dependent because you have parents. You have been born dependent on parents. And so your goal should be your whole life to break that dependency and to go off and make a life for your own. Interestingly enough, statistics have proven that those who break away from the pack, those who decide to try to become as independent as possible, lead towards hermitage, and as hermits, they end up actually having a higher rate of depression, of suicide, of isolation, and feeling alone, because they, as they were created and as they've been found to be independent from God from birth, if your goal as being independent from God from birth is just to become more and more independent, what you're saying is you are choosing a life of isolation. Next Monday, our topic of conversation, so that I can go ahead and clue everybody in. The next topic, next Monday, we're going to be talking about our bodies and about, I've recently lost almost 30 pounds in the last, it's not recent, it's taken since February, so it's been quite a while. But since February, I've been working on losing weight, and it's important to talk about. It's important to talk about how we feel. It's important to talk about perhaps maybe what you're struggling with, what you're going through. And I would love to be able to have that conversation with you and see if I can encourage you in any way about weight loss or about physical exercise and nutrition. In all honesty, I haven't, in the last 30 pounds of weight loss, haven't gone to the gym as much as you probably think I have. Probably I would have to say 80% to 90% of the weight loss that I've experienced has been just basically nutrition-based and psychology-based, learning why I have triggers and what triggers I have that would cause me to want to eat and make bad choices. It was really interesting throughout the process, and I'll leave you with this, that the majority of the reason why we choose bad foods, the sweet, salty foods that have no caloric value whatsoever, but just taste good, is because we're tired, because we haven't gotten enough sleep the night before. And that if you don't get enough sleep the night before, your ability to make wise decisions goes way down. It made me almost wonder, how many of the decisions that are made have just been made from a complete, how many negative impacting decisions in society even were just made from the standpoint of exhaustion, that people are just exhausted, and in their exhaustion they make bad decisions and get angry and get grouchy. So as we go through and as we continue to make good decisions, it's often a result of getting enough good sleep. So I would love to encourage you to make sure that you try to at least get that good night's sleep, because you'll see the next day it's so much easier to make those wise food decisions or wise decisions, period, when you've had a clear head and a good night's sleep. I am very encouraged when I hear my friends coming up and telling me what a good night's sleep that they had. It's strange how rare that is as the older you get, to hear that people are getting good night's sleeps. I think that stress has a lot to do with it. I think setting your expectations on having, a bad night's sleep has a lot to do with it. How much of our tossing and turning is self-imposed because we're just laying in bed expecting that we're going to have a horrible night's sleep, that it's going to be just another night of tossing and turning. If I could encourage you in any aspect, it would be that I would like to encourage you and come in agreement with you that you're going to get a good night's sleep. That tonight's the night that you're going to sleep great. And tomorrow, when it comes to making your choices for what you're going to eat and how you're going to what you're going to drink, that it will be coming from a standpoint of completely rested, which is the ideal. So that's going to be next week. Next Monday, we're going to talk about, our body and our nutrition and how it is that we would be able to go through and lose those pounds that we've been wanting to lose. How it is that we would be able to choose those foods that we desire, that we know that our bodies are craving, hydration, food, that we're going to be able to discuss that next week. Changing gears for a minute. How are you when it comes to football? I, fortunately, am married to somebody who does love to watch football and all sports, but has accepted to watch them on demand. Does not have to be live and in person. Now, the big ones like the World Series or the Super Bowl, absolutely, 100%. We make a huge ordeal about it. It is the time that I get to plan an event. And but I do have relatives that are into everything from the fantasy football league to can't miss a certain game and the NFL package. It's interesting because my grandfather, he's 90 years old, and in his being 90 years old, he loves football, and he grew up listening to football on the radio. And I asked him once, I said, Grandpa, can you see the plays when they're being called? Like, do you know what's going on the field without even seeing it? And he was like, oh yeah, absolutely. So he's of the generation that he can actually close his eyes and watch the football game without actually watching it. I don't have any level of understanding, I don't think, in anything where I could actually close my eyes and participate in it. I'm trying to think, could I even play the piano if I closed my eyes? Probably not, because I have to look at where my fingers are going. But that too is a testament of our imaginations, right? It's no surprise that as we've become such a visual society with all of the YouTubes and the just being able to consume so much content visually, that getting into that place of imagination can sometimes be difficult. And while it's like it almost leaves us with no other option but to imagine things happening poorly, because it gives our imagination a chance to do something. Because when we watch content and we consume content continuously, and we're a visual society where we see things play out in front of us, and all of it's beautiful, all of it's positive, it's like some weird attempt at balance, that we begin to start imagining things happening in the negative for us. So that right there is a red flag, as to be able to say, hey, are we imagining, for as much content as we're visually consuming, as many videos as we're watching, my tendency is to watch positive and encouraging things. I don't like watching horror movies or, things that are the news, or things that are going to be downers. I don't like watching downers. So since I don't like watching downers, am I allowing my imagination to go in tune with the content that I am consuming of being positive? Or am I somehow attempting a weird balance that says, well, if I'm going to consume positive content, then I need to imagine the shoe falling. I need to imagine things happening negatively. I need to imagine the opposite of what I am consuming. I'm going to challenge you today to make sure that your imagination runs in line with the visual stimulation that you are consuming, that the two would go hand in hand. That if you are consuming positive biographies and masterclasses and content that is inspiring, that you would make sure to discipline your imagination to not go down the path that says, well, that happened for so and so, but it could never happen for me. Well, that's a beautiful house, but my house is ugly. Because comparison will always steal our joy, and a double-minded man cannot prosper, right? A house divided cannot stand. We cannot be thinking and watching other people and being entertained by other people living their most beautiful, most glamorous, best life, and then allow our imaginations and some sort of weird universal balance to say, well, I'm consuming all this positive content over here, and so therefore I must imagine all this negative happening in my own life. Being able to say, it happened for them, it can certainly happen for me. Their house is beautiful, and so is mine. Being able to say that you're walking in agreement and walking in tandem with their best life now as you're walking your best life now is a wonderful example of being inspired and taking the inspirational aspects of other people's lives and allowing those inspirations to encourage you to walk in the same manner, not through jealousy, not through covetousness, but to be able to take those things and those types of experiences and those types of inspiring aspects and be able to somehow figure out how you can apply them into your own life and what you're doing in your life. Because there's really no room for anxiety. There's really no room for inferiority or having an inferiority complex as you are walking in Christ. And in these last few minutes that we have together, I really have been enjoying being able to be together. And I'm really enjoying being able to speak with you today on YouTube and Facebook. If you would like to continue the conversation, please feel free to comment below on Facebook and comment. I don't know if YouTube works like that, if you can comment on live videos via YouTube. But if you can, I'm going to be going back to YouTube and I'm going to be checking in and seeing how everybody's doing throughout the week. I'm going to be broadcasting daily shorts on all of the platforms on various different words of the day and hopefully words of encouragement for you. And also, if you are, this is totally a completely listener-supported. This is a listener-supported live. I just feed off of your support versus in your comments, and both financially, and I would like to thank everyone who's contributed so far to getting this up and running and continuing this conversation. You can check the links below on Facebook and YouTube to see how you can be a part and become a part of building something great together with me as we continue to go forward and increase these platforms. So thank you, everybody, for coming and joining me today. Thank you for the audio listeners who are listening on a podcast. I hope that these conversations and this word encouraged you today about setting our expectations. I believe in you. I believe that you're going to have a fantastic, great day. I believe that you're going to have a great rest of your quarter. I believe that you are not only going to be able to take your expectations and set them without worry and without anxiety and without care, but you're going to be able to succeed significantly and be able to do all of the things that you have on that bucket list that I know that you have. We all have one, and we are all working our way down, hopefully. And together, maybe by the end of the year, maybe let's see where we're at on our bucket list, and maybe we'll be able to actually have some of those things knocked off. I'm getting to take my daughter to Paris in November. That is a huge bucket list item. And so as that is one of our bucket list items, I'm going to be able to be with you and tell you all about it along the way. It's been my pleasure. It's been a wonderful joy being able to spend this time with you. And I look forward to seeing you next week. And keep it up. Keep up the good work. I'm proud of you.